Hello. So this video is just going to talk about how DK's macro allows him to accelerate the game much faster than most Korean teams would be expected to. And it's just going to give you a general rundown of what to look at as you are going away from the group stage and as we get off to the higher stakes where the playoff and the knockout bracket starts happening. So with that in mind, the common phrase that is used in Korean, or well, it has a Chinese background. I don't know how to pronounce it in that, but it pretty much stands for giving away, letting your flesh be cut in order to sever the enemy's bones, which implies, in terms of the proverb, is to give away something that is less significant or something that you could lose to land a killing blow on the enemy, so on sort. And this type of idea has been practically used in the East Asian war tactics for a very long time, and League is no exception because in nature it is a tactical game. And to give you a brief example of DK's macro, what they do is they only look for 1-3-1 when they want to maximize farm on all their carries and hit a critical spike, or playing from behind. And they rarely look for 1-3-1 for the sake of either accelerating their gold lead or trying to just create a neutral state in which they could play the objective games from. This is what most likely EU teams and North American teams would pursue, but DK doesn't necessarily do that. What they do instead is they dedicate multiple players to two lanes to create an unexpected temporary man advantage when they have control over the game. This typically results in two things. Either the team is prepared and then they stack onto one side and they scrap against DK. They're an extremely good team fighter. At the same time, they have also prepped a side lane on the other side so they induce CS loss that way. Or if they match 1-3-1 because they're behind and they need to maximize their gold and their solo laners, then they suffer a temporary man disadvantage, and as a result, DK gets something huge on that side of the map. And this loss is of CS and EXP that results when the enemy solo laner shoves one side lane is made of because of that huge advantage that they do acquire. And to give a couple of examples, we need to really look into a couple of games. And the one that I wanted to refer to the most was actually this game, where FPX did kind of underperform, but it still showed what type of mindset that DK has, even from early on into the game, where after getting a kill onto the top side and then Khan forced a flash on Nuguri while taking him down both at once. Showmaker's idea of playing TF has been very different from what you would typically expect out of a TF player. Well, how does TF typically like to play the lane? They typically like to shove the lane after they get enough AP damage to one-shot the minion wave on the gold card, and then what they responsibly do afterwards is they use that one timer that they acquire to link up with the jungler or even potentially the support to make a play onto the side and then get there faster. But what does and if we look at the map movements immediately after this replay, we could immediately see that after resetting, instead of going to mid lane, what Showmaker chooses to do is immediately path towards the topside jungle. And the reasoning for this is not necessarily because he doesn't need to go mid lane. In fact, if we look at this lane state right now, he actually needs to be here in order to defend this tower. If FPX invests even one more member and then invests 3 in here, the mid tower is going to be down and this is going to be first turret gold being taken down. But what in the mind of FPX, in the mind of Damwon, is more important at this stage of the game is to take advantage of the little lead that they have acquired and then permanently make side lane for FPX very difficult to play, especially even in the 1-3-1 scenario where they will be typically like to play when their solo laner is significantly behind. So Team Showmaker goes to the top side of the map, and the moment the Nuguri shows onto the vision, TF just ports, and it kills the Gragas. And what this allows them to do is, since FPX did not respond fast enough because he totally expected TF to be mid lane, they're not only able to defend the mid tower, Ghost is able to get this farm, and then after he's done clearing, then TF just roams to the bots, roams mid, and it catches this, and then also AD carry could catch this bot wave as well. In theory, this type of fast movement has allowed them to not only get one huge lead onto the one side of the map, but also prevent any type of cross-map play that could potentially punish them from this. And this type of one-sided gameplay may not necessarily happen all the time, and this is to be expected. Of course, after all, how would you possibly expect this to consistently happen? And oftentimes what you have to really resort to doing is you have to make multiple sacrifices in order to make sure that you're not necessarily able to create those type of plays. So in these type of occasions, what DK chooses to do is, especially when they're able to shove one side of the map, they pretty much commit to it. This is one of those situations where in a typical textbook scenario, you would typically say that a winning team should not be able to trade objectives. However, this is done with a full intent because of taking advantage of the one full sideway that they have shoved. They're actually playing a gamble. The way that we know that we're playing a gamble is looking at Ghost's position right here. And the way that we look at this is actually a similar setup to what we have seen last time. MF is able to catch mid wave and bot wave simultaneously. And then as a result, they're minimizing CS loss on their end. TF is getting less farm, sure, but it is made up by the fact that MF is able to catch the side wave. However, what do we see immediately? And then the way that they stylistically change, MF is not committing to either side. She's actually meandering somewhere in between. And what does that mean? It actually means two things. Because what they're realizing is that since they have invested this many numbers, and this is a safe assumption to assume that Canyon is on this side, what FPX is deciding to do is they're deciding to shove both sidelines to take control of this jungle. And this is a very textbook response, especially in terms of a cross-map situation when they are behind. This will be something they'll rather be happy with. Doinb just got the bot tower, and he was able to shove the wave in, so they'll be able to, Nuguri will be able to catch this safely with... if Doinb wishes to recall and to back him up, he could also do that as well. However, DK is fully aware of this because they immediately realize that LWX is actually trying to shove the wave by himself, and he instantly gets punished. And that is precisely the reason why MF actually does not hover and commit to one side and then immediately runs to the bot side, runs to mid when they realize that this window is available. And the moment that these two get into effective combat range, TF immediately uses port, and then he gets taken out. And this type of situation where Jin is to have to burn both summoners, especially at key timers where they have to contest a nearby next objective, is something that they will constantly try to look for, and this ultimately gains them a huge fight advantage at the Ocean Dragon. Now, this may not be necessarily the only time that DK does this. In fact, they do this quite often, and this is like a great example of them when they dismantle T1 into playing this type of style, especially during their just finals run. And after getting the full shove in and then just making sure that the tower is crashed, then DK just plays this typical trick again. Now, in this situation where Faker will be now forced to push two lanes in order to create a pushing lane, then what would typically be expected to happen is after Ryze cheats the wave, then Faker is forced to stay one more turn, then he'll be going up to the top side of the map to collect the wave and then slow stack and then crash his wave again in preparation for the next wave that is going to be happening in 2.5 minutes. This is what Damwon would have typically done in their Worlds run last year with Nuguri, where their entire win condition was revolving around shoving on one side lane about 2 minutes before the objective so they could 5-man ARAM without any repercussions on the cross map. However, we could immediately witness that after Showmaker's tendency has actually changed a little bit, because typically last year he would have gone to top side, but he immediately goes to mid. And the reasoning is rather simple. Even if Faker like pushes this lane all the way, I don't particularly think that DK would actually try to wrap around him and kill him. They'll actually just try to deliver the game plan even faster. Showmaker will be committed to the same exact side that he is right now, and the reason why this is so effective is because of two things. This side of the Vision Ward that they have established because they want to help Faker push out becomes completely irrelevant because there's no DK members to be seen there. Circumstantial vision particularly doesn't matter in this case because these wards are not good enough to completely cover where Showmaker is. And the way that it pays off, you may wonder, is exactly the way like this. Carrier does not expect to see a rise in this location. He has seen 3 people immediately admit that it's about to rotate. He has seen Camille on a ward. So as a result, he assumes that this is a good time to ward and then take control of the wave as his members group and then slowly push out DK out of this control. Because it is a ticking time clock. They have to address this wave. But instead he sees a rise, and then 1 minute before the objective, Leona is very low HP. He is not able to ward, so these 4 wards, if Damwon is able to keep this control, is not going to be used effectively. And this is something that a lot of teams should be careful of, and this is something that you as a viewer could really enjoy about DK. I hope you learned something, and stay tuned for more.